Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. Right now we are carrying on with our year-end ranking series. So we have made it through our first 5 videos. I probably should have split it down in 6 videos because the last two 2021 champion buffs ranked, they were very long videos, like 35 and 40 minutes or something like that, respectively. So I probably should have done it in 3, but either way, we are here, and this video is not going to be as long because we don't have that much to talk about. This is going to be class ranking video. This is going to be me going through each and every single class of the champions and basically ranking them in order, which one I find to be currently more potent, perhaps, and which one less potent. And here we are with our first problem. I think no matter how we slice and dice it this time around, this is the very first time it's borderline impossible to make this video. All the time in past, there have been clearly stronger classes and much weaker classes. And at the moment, the difference between the top and the bottom is fairly negligible, to a point where, again, some class has to come in 6th. And for some people, they will think that that is going to be the strongest class in the game. Before, I never had that problem because we clearly had, Cosmic and Tech class behind in the last video. And before that, we had Skill class hugely lagging behind. And then going back even further, we could look at, more and more examples again of Cosmic and Tech lagging, or Skill was, behind for a really long time. We always had kind of very good perception of these 2-3 classes are kind of like on the bottom end, and mutants are the love child of Kabam or whatever. Right now I had extremely tricky time. I basically did everything I could. What I did is I checked up the size of the classes. And most importantly, perhaps, I checked what changed, how much benefit each class received since my previous ranking videos. So I checked out champions that got buffed, marked down number of good champion buffs, marked down number of newly released champions, which are good, and then kind of tried to figure out whether that's enough to move up and down. But this was so much more tricky. So as I am getting started, with my 6th place pick, I know already that, as with all of these videos, I'm going to have somebody upset. But I want people to understand that obviously this is my personal view of the game. It's not some sort of fact. This is just the way I see the game overall at this current moment in time. And this is my opinion. And that's all there is to it. I'm not trying to be insulting towards anybody's appreciation towards different champions or anything of the kind. Second most important thing, I want everybody to understand that there's a very tiny difference in power at the moment in classes. I think that they are relatively interchangeable at this point, and we give Kabam a lot of stick for many different reasons, deserved or undeserved. But when it comes to this particular aspect of the game, the class balance in their power, I think the game is at its best place ever, where every single class is competitive. There is not a single class that feels weak, that people don't have good options to rank up. Every class has some very, very good champions and some very good things that they are capable of doing. Right, that being said, let's jump back to Aunt May and let's go over every single class and rank them in order. And perhaps shockingly, and again, if you disagree with my spot number 6, then please tell me who would you rank in spot number 6 instead. Because that's the thing, no matter which class at this point I'd mention, I'm sure there'll be quite a huge group of people that disagree with that. So in my 6th spot, I'm going to go this time around with Mystic. And previously, I ranked up Mystic as high as 3rd. They were typically somewhere in the middle, 3rd or 4th. And Mystic has a ton of amazing things, but they always have had two problems that they are starting to sort out, but slowly and, dare I say, relatively unsuccessfully. Mystic Class has always been kind of like too centered around Mystic Dispersion, and the fact that you don't have really Mystic champions that you just casually want to go in and quest with and clear KVQ like randomly. Like hardly anybody brings in like Dr. Doom or Black Widow Clairvoyant. If you can bring in Cosmic Ghost Rider or Ghost or Corvus or something that just eats through the fights. And Mystic Class doesn't really have many of these casual questing champion options. And they have started creating champions that would fit the bill, but they're just bad. As in, like, America Chavez, I think, is one of the best examples of them attempting to create a Mystic Class brawler type of champion where you just go in, you drop your 4-hit combo, you do the passive stun thing, drop a heavy attack, whatever else, and like, you know, as if you should be using her in any generic matchup, whether there are buffs or whether they're not buffs or whatever. She's just a horrible champion. She's quite fun to use, but she's horrible. You're not going to use her instead of Hercules or CGR or Corvus or whatever. So that kind of illustrates my point. The Mystic Class is relatively bound to these are the matchups that they're good with, and these are the matchups that they're like bad at or not particularly stellar or so on and so forth. And obviously, we can't talk in absolutes. We have received Scarlet Witch Sigil now and Diablo, who are two champions that are relatively high in Mystic tier list and only two good additions recently in the Mystic class that are actually able to function very well on their own in kind of casual matchups as well, but they do not really have that questing speed given to them that you'd like to see. All in all, I am glad to see that Mystic class is slowly starting to escape that reliance and defiance of Mystic Dispersion mastery, with champions like Black Widow Clairvoyant, Diablo, the Hood. You know, there are plenty of champions that do not necessarily need that Mystic Dispersion to function extremely well. But the reason they are in the 6th spot is that they are sharing the status of the smallest class in MCOC. Currently, only Mystic and Tech class have 33 champions. The rest of the classes have more. And the simple fact that compared to previous ranking videos, you know, they haven't received all that much this year. This year they have received Scarlet Witch Sigil, which, you know, has been a while ago. The rest of the Mystic editions are fairly crappy. You could argue that Mystic kind of got the short end of the stick this year with new champions, even though they did get 4 champions. They suck, most of them. And then on top of that, we have a Diablo buff and I think Hood buff, but that's all there is about. Like Ebony Maw buff didn't quite turn out to be stellar, Guillotine's buff didn't quite turn out to be stellar, and we didn't get many more than that, did we? I think that's just about it there. So at the moment, I think by a very thin margin, I am putting Mystic class in spot number 6, largely just because when it comes down to it and when it goes one kind of like 1-per-1 checking, then it's the smallest class. It got the least amount of, you know, powerful additions and improvements, whilst Mystic class obviously definitely did get better with Scarlet Witch, Sigil, and Diablo. It's just every single other class got significantly more. And now we can move on to class number 5. Class number 5, I think this time, just as the last time, is going to be Tech class. And again, Tech class did get a lot better. We got Nimrod, who is, I think, extremely underestimated champion. We got Kitty Pryde. We got buff on... we got Solar Centurion this year. We got buff on Nebula. We got buff on War Machine, Vulture. And perhaps most notably, we got buff on Ultron, who is an absolute beefcake now. Also, the class got stronger through synergies, thanks to Penny, for instance, pumping up Mysterio. And I almost didn't mention Howard the Duck, who is obviously a very powerful champion. And Tech class, again, progressed, I think, the default amount. I think however much better Tech class got, the classes that are ranked above Tech class got about exactly as much or even more. And this is, again, if you're going by numbers game, Tech class is smaller together with the Mystic class. Tech class receive decent benefit, but when we're going to be moving further on, we're going to see that other classes got about as much benefit, if not more. And previously, in our previous ranking videos, this is where Tech class finds itself to be before as well. Because previous class ranking video, we placed Tech class in 5th spot. And I think that is where they have kind of remained. I think overall, the level of each class has increased significantly, and they are feeling more balanced. There isn't as huge of a difference anymore in between, Tech class and whoever is above it. But I don't think that you could realistically say that Tech class has taken over and is better now than Skill Science or Cosmic or Mutant. Feel that this is where they sit right now. Very solid class, obviously plenty of good rank up options and very nice additions to the game. All in all, I do that word all in all. I know somebody's gonna comment about it in the comment section. I do think we need more. I do think Tech class is where we are going to find our prowess counter champions, because that has been the case so far in between Nimrod, Howard the Duck, War Machine, and Psycho Man, who's unfortunately waste of space. But I think Tech class is going to be the place where we find the abilities that counter prowess mechanic. And that's becoming more and more important, most recently with the change in Alliance War nodes. And it's not only because the prowess mechanics are so popular now with Mutant champions, it's also because we're getting much more nodes that involve prowess and opponents building up on prowess and then going unblockable or unstoppable and so on and so forth. And we just need more options to counter that. We need more champions that are capable of removing prowess effects. Tech class is where we're going to find it, and Tech class is the class that I'm rooting for kind of the most at the moment to get the most immediate benefit, the most immediate bonus and buffs and new champions released. Because currently it's just kind of like Nimrod, or then you struggle a lot more in between. Do you really want to use Psycho Man? No. Many people aren't that keen on War Machine either. And then we have, you need to use Synergy to do it with Howard the Duck. So it really isn't enough. There aren't enough abilities that go after prowess effects. And I do hope that Tech class receives that. Right, let's move on to class number 4. And this is going to be a class that is, again, probably favored by many people. And a class that was significantly higher in the previous rankings. And that class is Skill. In the previous rank up video, Skill got 2nd place. Because they just exploded in their usability. They had recently received buffs of Kingpin, Falcon, Mole Man, recent edition of Shang-Chi, and that's it, Past Shang-Chi, they didn't actually receive, well, Kraven just came out, but we'll see how that works out. And when it comes to the buffs, they didn't really get any more buffs towards end of the year that are that noteworthy that you could factor in, like, really the strength of the class. The more recently skill champions that got buffed is what? Thor Ragnarok, which, take it or leave it. Hawkeye, which is fairly decent. And then like Black Panther or something. But that's kind of the thing. Skill class got a ton of help, a ton of support at end of 2019. Sorry, at the end of 2020 and at beginning of 2021, which is the reason why they were able to be as high as they were in the previous ranking video. Because they were kind of like fresh off the juice. They had already received pretty much all the benefits that they will for the year very early on. And then they didn't. And that's why they have slidden lower. So when we look at 2021 releases, there's Shang-Chi, which obviously is superbly awesome. Good champion. Very powerful champion. And the champion buffs in between Crossbones, in between Mole Man, in between Kingpin. All that stuff happened very early in the year. And in the last 6 months, which I need to look at right now, they didn't really get all that much help from others. Which is fine, obviously. That still received a ton of support, ton of build-up for the year, but that inevitably did mean that their ranking is going to suffer. The skill class moved down from, in my opinion, second most powerful class to currently being in the 4th spot, just because that after skill class received their juice, and arguably, more than other classes did, but they needed it more, because before skill class was the worst class. So skill class went from the worst to almost at the top, and now other classes have kind of caught up and perhaps even overtaken it. But here we are. I do still, however, think that skill class is tremendously powerful now. They are not a pushover class. Some of my favorite champions and arguably most used champions are skill champions. I think when it goes to the champions that I have taken up to rank 3 as 6 stars as well, skill is currently in the 2nd place on my own account, because obviously they have Nick Fury, they have Kingpin, they have Mole Man, there are a ton of other champions that are just, super useful and crazy good, like Shang-Chi and Aegons and so on and so forth. So here we are. Skill is sitting in 4th spot. And now we're going to move on to 3rd spot. And 3rd spot currently is going to be Science, a class that I always want to rank up in top. And that simply goes to the fact that this is my favorite class. Skill class represents what I like most and what I enjoy most in the game, and that is, incredible amount of utility and flexibility. If I had to choose one class that I would have to tackle all of the content in game with, Science is the class that I would choose, because they can cover all the immunities, they can cover every single piece of utility that I need, whether it is to counter auto blocks or evades or unstoppables or what have you. The only thing that the Science class struggles is getting buffs. There really are hardly any champions in Science class that are capable of actually getting, any meaningful amount of buffs on themselves. But, there's some options. Other than that, Science is just super powerful class with extremely interesting and versatile applications. This year, definitely they have received significant reinforcements as well in form of Mr. Negative and Spider-Man 2099 mainly, but even Anti-Venom, Overseer, definitely those champions have their fair share of uses as well. And then we obviously still have buff champions like Joe Fixit's gotten his buff, and Mr. Fantastic is, surprisingly got his buff and definitely became a lot more powerful than he used to be. And Miles Morales now is, again, one of those niche kings, one of those cheese king options when it comes to dealing with unblockable. So yeah, I do think that Science class kind of received solid amount of support, growth, and benefit. And I value them extremely highly. If I wasn't, trying not to be as biased, I probably would place them higher. And obviously, that 5-star Quake symbol here stands out like a sore thumb. But I also think it's been a good thing that we haven't had a 6-star Quake. The less we end up using Quake, the more we end up relying on different options and testing out different things and seeing some, creative solutions. And again, with Quake, it's one of those things where no matter how much I love Quake and how much I love using Quake and how great and, powerful she is, I think it is a good thing that we don't have a 6-star one. On a selfish level, obviously, I'd want one for myself. But do I think the game is better off served without a 6-star Quake? Yeah, I do. Because Quake is one of those champions that always seems like the easiest solution, and therefore you don't really want to tackle the problem in the first place. You just ignore the problem and Quake. So I'm fine with Quake not coming as a 6-star. I've long made my peace with that. And I still value Science class extremely highly due to their versatility in between Immortal Abomination, Anti-Venom, Captain America Infinity War, Immortal Hulk, and Human Torch, and now Joe Fixit, Miles, Spider-Ham's been growing on me as well, and Gwen and She-Hulk and Red Hulk and Mr. Negative and Mr. Fantastic, Luke Cage, Spider-Man 2099, Thing, Void, even Yellow Jacket. I think all of those are amazing champions. There is no lack of absolutely amazing champions. that in fact there are only a handful of champions that are, still waiting for a buff, and then I'd say that on average they probably have the strongest champions, as in like you have the least chance of getting a bad pull in this class, because it's fairly compact class as well. It's only 34 champions, and that's the second smallest amount, and almost all of them are good, obviously, except your Ant-Man, except your Sentry and Rhino and OG Spidey, and a few more. Right, let's move on to spot number 2, and spot number 2 now is again a complete turnaround. Just like skill class went from being the worst class in the game to being the second best in the previous ranking video, Cosmic class has done the same. Cosmic class has effectively gone from the bottom to spot number 2, because it's impossible to deny the progress that this class has made. First off, looking at the champions that got buffed, that would be Angela, who's easily again towards the top of the buff champions this year. Tons of utility, favorite champion for a huge group of players. Then past Angela, we have Venompool. Venompool is someone more recent of a buff and still putting in a ton of work. Odin actually got made into a decently good champion after its release. And then we obviously have King Groot. King Groot's just smashing quests and alliance quests for everyone and putting in tremendous amount of work. And went from, somewhat of a meme with a tiny cult following into, a mainstream top alliance quest champion with plenty of damage, plenty of versatility, and still infinite amounts of healing, basically. And then when it comes to the new additions to the class, the only class that received 6 champions this year, and what the 6 champions they were. Obviously, not all of them have been hits, like Super Skrull and Cersei, take it or leave it. But Hercules, in my opinion, the best champion added this year. And Null, also an extremely solid champion, many people's favorites. Odin, a champion I personally value extremely highly. And Icarus, that I also think is going to be a very solid addition to the most people's rosters. And in between having like 4 or 5 very solid buff champions, in between having like 4 champions released, the class has completely changed the way it looks. It's also the biggest class in the game with 42 champions overall, biggest by a significant margin. The closest class that comes closest to Cosmic is Mutant with 37. So there is like a huge gap in between that, and it's even bigger gap obviously against the classes that have like 33, 34 champions. So Cosmic class has the numbers. Yes, there are plenty of duds, but the class in itself has gained like 8, 9 champions that are extremely powerful in more or less like the last half a year or last 7 months. And it's been a joy to watch the class transform from very one-dimensional damages everything type of class to a class that still does a ton of damage, still looked as, one of the most, if not the most buff-heavy, debuff-centric, class filled with tons of damage, aggressive champions. But now you have a ton of more understated versatilities. Now you have Hercules with his immortality, and you have King Groot and Null with their, healing potential. And then you have Venompool with all of his buffs and shenanigans that he does. And obviously we still have the Cosmic Ghost Rider. And Hyperion got released as a 6-star, which is also an extremely big deal, as well as Medusa 6-star now exists in the game. So yeah, I think Cosmic class has just been bombarded with support and improvement. And that's why I'm putting them in the second place. And the top class still remains Mutant. But this time I was actually having a hard time thinking whether Mutant still deserves to be a top class. If half a year ago it was, very hard to deny their claim to the throne, then now it was much easier. Now I genuinely had to think whether they are that much better than, Science or Cosmic class. But for now, we are leaving them there. For now, we are going to leave them there because they had to work very hard to get up there. So this year, they only gained 3 new champions. One kind of like poopish, one take it or leave it, and one that's an absolute powerhouse. I think Kitty Pryde will be one of the power players in this game for years to come. I think she is going to be changing the way we look at things and the way we counter things. And I do think she's going to make it all the way up to, Mutant top 5 easily. And all in all, again, said that phrase again, been trying not to, whatever. They still didn't receive as much benefit as other classes, which is the reason why I felt that other classes are kind of catching up to the mutants. Now, we did get a buff on Bishop that was a successful buff. I don't think anybody's going to want to deny that. And besides buffed Bishop and Kitty Pryde, we can see that they didn't really get much else than that. Therefore, I still put them in the first spot. But I think they're not far ahead anymore. I think it's extremely competitive race at the moment. And the way things stand, I do find it very plausible that either either science or cosmic class can overtake them. But obviously, we still have the powerhouses of the mutant class, and mutant class still could arguably be the class with the largest amount of extremely powerful champions. Just by numbers speaking, we have Apocalypse, we have Archangel, we have Bishop now, we have Cable, we have Colossus, and then we have Professor X and Omega Red, Namor, both Magnetos, Kitty Pryde, Havoc, Storm Pyramid X, and Strife and Sunspot. So there is a ton of quality and value there. We'll see how things unravel. I am personally, though, looking forward to the point where we can comfortably say that there is a class stronger than Mutant, and I think we are quite close to that. Generally think that at the moment, if things go remotely in the same direction, then Cosmic class is going to overtake Mutant class in a very near future. And for me personally, I do think that Cosmic class is already the most used class, especially if I'm running Liquid Courage Double Edge. If I'm not, then it could perhaps be Science, but if I am, then it's Cosmic. It's definitely not Mutant for me personally, even though I do have the highest amount of Mutant champions ranked up. But yes, so I do still think that Mutant class currently is standing at the top, but not by a big margin anymore. Right, let me know what you think and how would you guys have ranked up these classes. So just a quick recap for me, from me. So spot number 6, Mystic. Spot number 5, Tech. Spot number 4, Skill. Spot number 3, Science. Spot number 2, Cosmic. Spot number 1, Mutant. Let me know what you guys think, and I am going to catch you guys soon. See ya.
Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the